So for this week's vlog, I decided to go outside because it's so nice. So you'll have to forgive the background noise because I can't mute birds and traffic. And I will probably be extra squinty, and that's because it has been so cold and brutal this winter that now that it's warm, even the slightest bit, I need to be outside and enjoy the sun. So there you have it. This week's vlog is going to be about the IEP process and some of the things that you need to know and some of the things you need to remember when you are participating in an IEP meeting. This is the time of year where all of our children are getting reevaluated, and we're working on the IEP for the next school year. So I know that this is a time when we might all need some of these reminders. I'm sure most of this is stuff that everybody knows, but sometimes reminders are good. And by the off chance that you are not familiar with the IEP process, hopefully by the time you're finished watching, you'll have learned something about kind of what our life is like. So I'll start with the IEP and what that is. That is an individual education plan, and it is written by the staff of the school. So that could be the principal, the director of special education, all of the therapists and service providers that see your children, and you as a parent. It can be a little daunting, even though this is meant to be able to write a unique plan for each individual child so that they can be successful. It's not easy. And sometimes when you show up as a parent, there is a table full of professionals at that table, and you feel out of place or uncomfortable. The first thing I wanted to share with you is you shouldn't. In fact, of all of those people, you are the professional in terms of your specialty is that child. You know that child better than anybody in the room. So tell yourself that, remind yourself of that before you go in, that they may be educated and they may work with hundreds of kids a day, but nobody knows this child better than you do. So remind yourself of that. It can be scary. It can be uncomfortable, especially if you're somebody that is shy, but hang in there because you truly are the expert of this kid. Like I said, it is used to write a plan for the unique needs of your specific child. So sometimes a school can say things like, well, I see 25 kids an hour, or I hold the IEP for 50 kids. None of that matters. And it's okay to remind them of that. It's okay to remind them that it doesn't matter how many kids are in the school or in the classroom or getting services. This meeting is concerning one child. So it doesn't matter what they've done for anybody else or what they're going to do for anybody else. All that matters is what this child needs to be successful. An IEP includes different strategies, accommodations, and modifications so that your child can learn to the best of his or her ability. And it is enforceable by the state and the government law. You have to have everything that you think needs to be in that IEP written down. If it's in the IEP and it's not done, then you can call, and there are people to investigate to make sure that the IEP is being followed. So even for minor things like communication notebooks, I always encourage that they go on the IEP, simply because if it doesn't happen and it needs to be, then you can call someone and say, hey, this is on the IEP, it's not happening, I need to make a formal complaint. And that's okay to do. Sometimes schools need that simply because they don't know the law. Schools are there to educate general students, and many of our teachers, administrators don't really know the education or the special education law, so it's okay to remind them. And if that's a formal complaint, then you have to do what's best and right for your child. The goals on the IEP can have educational, social, physical, or mental pieces to them. All of these things are necessary in order for our children to learn. And if they can have any academic standing at all, then it's okay to have them as a goal. If you get into these meetings and you can clearly see that there's not going to be any agreeing and you feel like your back is against a wall, it's okay to stop the meeting. It's okay not to finish. You don't have to get the IEP written. You don't have to have the goals done. It's okay to stop the table and ask for a different date so that you can do some research, so that you have some resources with you. You can bring somebody with you, an advocate, a friend, your spouse, significant other, a lawyer, whatever it is that you might need. It's okay to do. Another thing that people often ask about the IEP is sports. If my child has an IEP, can they participate in sports? The answer is yes. If a school system tells you no, that your child can't play sports because he or she has an IEP, it's discrimination, point blank. There's no discussion. So, if he or she meets the criteria for the sports that everybody needs to meet, then they can participate. Another important aspect of the behavior plan of the IEP is the behavior plan. If your child is one that struggles behaviorally, you're going to want to ask for a functional behavior assessment. And from that, then they write what's called a positive behavior plan. Many times this is done by the psychologist in the schools, and a lot of times that's okay. But it's also okay if you feel like a specialist needs to come in to ask for someone who is trained and educated specifically in behaviors. Sometimes that's what's needed. An outside eye can pick up on things that a school psychologist doesn't always realize. And it's okay to ask for that. The biggest thing that I could ever tell anybody to do is to go in prepared. If you're going to ask for a service that they're not already getting, research it. Go in with the proper documentation to show them what that service does. And then not just show them what it does, but show them what it'll do for your child. If you're asking for music therapy, research it. Look at the background of what music therapy offers, and share that with the committee. But don't stop there. Just take it another step and show them what that particular service could do for your child. How could it benefit your child academically? Don't give them any reason to say no. Show them that you are educated, you did your homework, you're only going to ask what's necessary, and show them that you're a team player. Sometimes that means you might need to meet them halfway, and that's okay. Because, let's face it, you have what's best. You have your child's best interest in mind, and the school has the school's best interest in mind, and sometimes you have to compromise so that everybody gets what they need. And that's another point that's very, very important to remember. It isn't just about what you want for your child to have, it's what's necessary. If they're receiving a service and it's proven that it's not necessary academically, then chances are you're not going to get that service. So if it's something that you have your heart set on and you know your child needs, then you need to find out if it's necessary. Do your own research. That's okay. Again, don't go in angry or defensive. Don't be the parent that the committee cringes at when you walk in the door. Just know your stuff. Go in confident. Go in with proof, whether it's proof about your child or proof that these services work. Do your research. I know it's a lot of work on top of everything else that you've got to do, but it is so worth it. When you come out of there with the IEP that you know will help your child be successful, then you'll know you've done your job as an advocate. And lastly, please don't forget that you can have the best written IEP in the world. But if your staff aren't trained or aren't familiar with the IEP, then it isn't going to be worth anything. So make sure that the staff are trained. If your child has significant and unique needs that many students don't have, it's okay to ask that some of those staff trainings be put right on the IEP, that these particular staff that are working so closely with your child who has behavior outbursts need to be trained in safe crisis resolution. There are different things that you can ask for. And it's not end all. You can agree on this IEP and 6 weeks into the school year realize it's not working. That's okay too. You can always come back. You can always rework it. It isn't all or nothing. So, most importantly, go in confident. Go in understanding that you're the expert and that you truly do know your child better than anybody. And take a picture. I know it seems silly, but some of those people at that table aren't going to know your child. And even for those that do, they're still looking at that piece of paper and they're still looking at that state classification, what they're classified in special education. Don't let them do that. Don't let them see that classification. Show them a picture. Put a face to the name. Make sure that they understand that who they're talking about is a student and somebody that you love and somebody that you're going to work extra hard to make sure that they are successful. And that means you're going to hold everybody that works with your child accountable. So confidence, confidence, confidence. And if you have any particular IEP questions or concerns, feel free to email me at mommyofautism@gmail.com. If I don't know the answer, I can find somebody who does.